My name is George English. I'm the Director of Research Through People. Now, when we research people's ancestors, almost always they've lived through the Industrial Revolution and been affected by it, sometimes more, sometimes less. We made videos on this beforehand. What I want to do this time is focus particularly on the sort of social conditions that our ancestors lived through, the effect on their lives, not just of employment, but health, education and things like that. So, just sum up, the Industrial Revolution started in the early 18th century, grew particularly in the 19th century, and Britain led the world in all sorts of industries. Textiles, shipbuilding, coal, iron and steel fed the machines and things that kept going. The railways came in and so on. And by 1851, Britain had more than 40% of the total world's trade. Tremendous employment opportunities, but tremendous effects, both socially, economically. People would leave the land and go to the cities and towns where housing had to be built very rapidly and didn't catch up. And you see the growth in towns. There's London, 1700, 1800, 1900. In the 19th century, almost 7 times growth. Glasgow, 10 times, in fact grew more than 50 times in just those 200 years in 1700 and 1900. Birmingham, similar sort of thing. And we could go through these big cities, Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Southampton, Newcastle, Sheffield, sucking people from the land to work in these new industries. So what I'm going to do is use 1 or 2 very quick examples of very different sort of situations, but our ancestors lived through this. So let's take the Lisle family in Scotland. So there's John. He's born in Montrose, 1903. His parents are from Houston Renfrew, just south of Glasgow, going back with the Lisles. William's born 1832 and marries a girl quite close by, Anne. There's James. We're back more than 200 years already. Let's look at the occupations. Now, James Lisle was a hand loom weaver. Textiles played a part then. Probably he had the hand loom in his house. Machine looms had not come in at that stage. Now his son William becomes a mason, a sort of job that you can do at home or in a locality, not yet affected by the Industrial Revolution. But then Archibald Lisle becomes a ship joiner. Houston, quite near to the River Clyde, shipbuilding industry grew tremendously and sucked in a lot of people, gave them employment. But when we try and do our reports, we try and bring to life. So in fact, here's a weaver's cottage in Kilbarcon where James lived. So typically he would have lived in a place like this and had his own hand loom there. Take another example. Let's go to the Midlands, the Thurman family. So there's William Thurman. He's born in Tipton in Staffordshire, 1877. There's his parents again from Tipton. Thurman's Tipton going back all the time. And in fact, Joseph there, born 1788 in the 18th century, has come quite close by. But again, let's look at the occupations here. Well, in this case, William's become a furnace labourer. His son Thomas, ironworks. His son William, so they work in the same industry all the time. Wow, this is where they work, charging a blast furnace, day in, day out with heat and so on. The Bowes family of Lancashire may be affected in different ways. So there's Jack in Prestwich. His dad, we've got photos in this case, we found old photos of them, Arthur going back in time. His father George marries Millicent Peake. His sister Isabella marries William Lee. Lancashire famous for textiles, you probably know that. What happened in this case, they started a textile company. So Kay and Lee, a wholesale clothing business in 1873. So that may be the way that your family was affected. Had a partnership with George and then son Arthur followed in from that. Now, when we're researching that sort of thing, there may be particular records that come to light and can be found. So they made men's clothing both in Manchester and over in Ireland. Now, newspaper reports really bring people to life. So here's a little example, an accident to a machine girl in the K&Lee factory. She was larking near the field and fell through the door into the street below. Wee example, but brings that person to life. And other things you get, obviously obituaries you can find for a lot of people, but again the sort of not just getting names and places, but bringing the people to life, what they lived through and so on. So the social side of the Industrial Revolution, these people flocking to the cities and towns, millions living there, but they lived in slums, very overcrowded conditions. Health, there was nothing like the sort of development of health that we have now with vaccines and all sorts of things. So disease was widespread, people living close together would pass things on. No national health service. The national health service only came about after the Second World War. Women, very few opportunities for women. Most women become a domestic servant, possibly hope to meet a man. Schooling, you often get in the early censuses, the children are just at home. Compulsory schooling didn't start till the 1870s. And the welfare state, no benefits, no state pensions, so people lived in poverty, particularly in old age. So this is what we often find in our research, because our ancestors lived through this. Now here's Joseph Luff's Bible and family. This was interesting with this case. We found that Joseph had 8 children. He'd married Mary Ann in 1820 in Shoreditch in the East End of London. Now someone had the family Bible, and look at this. In fact, they had 13 children. And what we've got here is the dates that they were born and died. Those in yellow are the 5 who survived into adulthood. But all the rest, you just look at those dates. Mary Ann, the eldest, survived to be in her 90s. Amazing. The next 5 children all died. 4 of them died before the age of 1. And then Eliza there, born in 1828, dies 1830. She got tuberculosis, an illness that killed a lot of people then, which we don't even think about now in general. And then Alfred survived, but then the next, Emily, she dies young. Edwin, he survived. Next 2, Frederick and James, again, they die young. So 7 of their children died before the age of 1. We couldn't find records of them because the birth didn't even get registered. And then ironically, the last birth, Lucy and Alice are twins, and they both survived. But imagine the mother, the parents, coping with that sort of challenge. Oh. Now here's another one in Scotland. Murray family. Margaret Murray, 1851, she's a widow. Her husband died about 3 years before them. She's aged 50 and left with 11 children. Just look, from the age of 22 down to 4. Dreadful. Not quite as bad as maybe it would be these, because you can see the 10-year-old son is already working as the 12, 14, 16-year-old. So in fact, there are 8 children bringing money in. And you can see the sort of jobs they're doing. John became a farm labourer, but all of the next 7 are working in textiles of some sort. So no social benefit and so on and so forth, but the one way that helped Margaret to cope would be because she had children who were earning. So all sorts of different things apply. But I hope you found that of interest. Get us to come and look at your family, see what happened and so on. We have videos we've made, and you may have come across these already. This is another one, of course, and blogs on our website, various packages. We don't just say tick a box, we say give us information, because we want to try and look at your particular situation and come back with suggestions of what we can do for you. There's contact details there to email us or give us a ring. At the free consultation, when you send us the information, we'll have a look at that for free and then come back to you. And hopefully, if you get us to help you, we'll produce a report that brings your ancestors to life. So look forward to hearing from you.